Jersey. Open every Saturday and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Log on to Facebook.com/Funkenstein Inc. for more information.
Join Brandon Lewis and Christopher Scythe Bracey every Tuesday night on YouTube.com/2KW at 8:30 p.m. as they bring you the matches and moments that make 2KW Pro the heart of New York City. 2KW Pro, your company, your wrestling.
This is Tim the Anvil Neidhart, and you're listening to Damaged Radio 365. Yeah, baby!
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
Welcome back after that short commercial break from Damage 365 and our sponsor. So let's get into it. Here are some storylines to be looking forward to in the second half of the MLB season. Let's get into it. Number 10, Ichiro Suzuki in his quest for 3,000 hits. Now, he came into the season with 2,935. There was question whether he'd be able to get those 65 hits, though. He only batted .229 last season. This season, going into today, .335 batting average. He's only 10 hits away. Whether it was a question going into the season whether he was going to do it. Now it's basically when will he do it. He would become the 30th member of the 3,000 hit club. Of course, he played his first 6-7 years professionally in Japan. Recently surpassed Pete Rose's hit total if you combine his Japan and MLB numbers. Some people consider him the all-time hit king. Because of that, I don't really, Japan, probably not quite the talent of MLB. Doesn't mean that Ichiro hasn't completely dominated MLB on his way to 3,000 hits. Of course, has the record for most hits in the season with 272. Won MVP in his rookie season. It's been a magical career for Ichiro, and ready to reach a climax with 3,000 hits. For a Marlins team that is surprising many and is right there in the playoff hunt. I believe tied with the Mets now for the second wild card spot. Go Marlins. Number 9, the Baltimore Orioles, currently leading the AL East. Do they have a chance to break the all-time record for most home runs in a season? Now, that record was set by the 1997 Seattle Mariners with 264. The Orioles coming into today had 135 home runs in 86 games. That puts them on pace for 254, which is 10 short of that 97 Seattle Mariners team. But, a couple games with 3 home runs right out of the All-Star break, and, that puts them right near the pace of the Mariners, 264. They have a bunch of boppers on that team. As I mentioned earlier on the show, Mark Trumbo leading the majors with 28 home runs. They got Chris Davis with 21, Manny Machado 19, Adam Jones 17, Jonathan Shoup 14, and Pedro Alvarez and Matt Wieters with 9 apiece. So like I said, if you see the Orioles hit 3 or 4 homers in a couple games coming out of the All-Star break, you have to, keep watch for them for the rest of the season if they have a chance to approach that 97 Mariners home run record. Number 8, I could say David Ortiz as a whole because it's his. He already has announced that he will retire after the season, after, a magnificent career. Not so much with the Twins, but mostly with the Red Sox. But he also has a slight chance at the doubles record, most doubles in a season. And, keep in mind, he's 40 years old. I mean, let's look at his stats real quick coming into today. .332 average. .675 slugging percentage, which leads the majors, 21 home runs, and also a major league leading 34 doubles. That 34 doubles puts him on pace for 64 on the season, which would be 3 short of Tris Speaker's record of 67. Also probably a long shot that Ortiz can tie or break Tris Speaker's record, who was also on the Red Sox at the time many, many years ago when he set that record with 67 doubles. But, what an outstanding way that would be to end his career. Couple 2-double games heading out of the All-Star break, and, who knows, he'll be right on pace to, possibly get to Tris Speaker. Number 7 on this list of things to watch for in the second half of the season. Can some struggling players return the form? There's been many players in the first half of the season that have not reached their former selves, have not played up to expectation. One of those is Matt Harvey of the New York Mets. Unfortunately, he has announced that he will undergo season-ending surgery, so he will not have the opportunity to return to his prior form. Some other guys, Giancarlo Stanton, I mentioned him earlier, but he has, the past couple weeks gotten back into form. On June 5th, he was only batting 193 going into today, 233. Recently had 2 games against the Mets where he hit 2 homers in each of them, hit a home run today. So he's pretty much returned to form. There's a few pitchers, though. Some include Sonny Gray. I believe he finished 3rd in AL Cy Young voting last year. Actually, the top 3 AL Cy Young vote getters from last season, all struggling. Sonny Gray, 3-8, 5.16 ERA. Dallas Keuchel of the Astros was the AL Cy Young winner last year. So far this season, 6-9 with a 5.02 ERA. And David Price, signed that huge deal to join the Red Sox. Yes, he has an over 500 record at 8-6, but his 4.64 ERA is not very good. A couple hitters to mention. Andrew McCutchen, only batting .246 on the year. He's had 4 straight years, including 1 MVP. But the last 4 seasons has finished at least top 5 in NL MVP voting. And we have Bryce Harper, last season's MVP. He's still hitting for some power, drawing walks, but his batting average is only .259. That's something like 80 points less than it was last season. So we'll see if any of these guys can get back to form. There's plenty of other guys I mentioned who have not quite played up to the standards. Even a guy like Todd Frazier, yes, he's hit plenty of home runs, but I believe his batting average is right around 200. So that's no bueno. Number 6 are all the award races in the major leagues. Some early favorites, of course, through the first half of the season. The AL Cy Young, we got Chris Sale, Stephen Wright, Danny Salazar, Marco Estrada, even Baltimore Orioles closer Zach Britton has been lights out. NL Cy Young, Clayton Kershaw, was on the DL but has been dominant. Johnny Cueto, Madison Bumgarner, Steven Strasburg, and Jose Fernandez. American League MVP, Josh Donaldson has played strong, looking to repeat as American League MVP. We also got Manny Machado, Jose Altuve, and yes, the Angels have struggled, but Mike Trout is doing what Mike Trout does, since he's joined the MLB. NL MVP, we got guys like Chris Bryant, Nolan Arenado, and Anthony Rizzo. NL Rookie of the Year, Corey Seager, Trevor Story, Almides Diaz, Junior Guerra, Kenta Maeda, and Steven Matz. AL Rookie of the Year favorite definitely looks to be Michael Fulmer, who has, absolutely been phenomenal over his last 10 starts. Also got Nomar Mazara and Daeho Lee. Second half of the season will help decide who wins all of these awards. Of course, there's also Manager of the Year. That's always entertaining to see who pitches well, especially towards who pitches and hits well, especially towards August and September, and becomes the favorite and eventually wins these awards. Always exciting at the end of the season. Number 5 is, will the Royals have the opportunity not only to repeat as World Series champions, but to be crowned American League champions for the 3rd straight season? Of course, the playoffs started today. The answer would be no. They're 45-42 heading into today. That's tied for 3rd in the AL Central with the Chicago White Sox. They were 7 games behind the Cleveland Indians going into today, and 3.5 behind the 2 wild card teams, the Boston Red Sox and Toronto Blue Jays. Dealt with some injuries, especially as of recent. First, Mike Moustakas got hurt towards the end of May, tore his ACL. Torn ACL always equals will miss entire season. Lorenzo Cain currently on the DL with a left hamstring strain. Wade Davis, dominant closer, was recently put on the DL with a right forearm strain. Then we have some guys struggling. Yordano Ventura, after that great rookie season of 2014, has not been able to match that in the 2 years since. This year, sent to the minors as a 5.15 ERA. Chris Young, who was so good both out of relief and as a starter for the Royals last season, with a 6.90 ERA. Alex Gordon has missed some games due to injury, but even when he played, he's only batting .205. Pretty much need those guys to step it up. If the Royals want to have a chance to once again, perhaps be either both AL champs and World Series champs, or just, AL champs for the 3rd straight year, have some work to do in order to do that. Number 4, will there be any close divisional races other than the AL East? Heading into today, there was only one division where, a team was less than 5, a second place team was less than 5 games behind the first place team, that is the AL East, where the Baltimore Orioles had a 2-game lead over the 2 current AL wildcard teams, the Boston Red Sox and Toronto Blue Jays. After that, the next closest is in the NL East, where the the Washington Nationals hold a 5-game lead over the New York Mets. Mets, as I mentioned, Matt Harvey out for the season, have David Wright out for the season. They've been dealing with injuries. Cespedes and Syndergaard will miss the All-Star game. So it's going to be tough for them to overcome that 5-game deficit. Should be getting Zach Wheeler back sometime during the second half of the season. The other divisional races in the AL Central, the Cleveland Indians have a 6.5-game lead over the Tigers and a 7-game lead over the White Sox and Royals. In the AL West, the Texas Rangers have a 6.5-game lead over a team that's been streaking over the past about month and a half. The Houston Astros started off so slow, right back in the thick of things. Still got some work to do, though. 6.5 behind the Rangers, a little bit closer in the wild card. And the NL Central, we got the Cubs, 6.5-game lead over the Pirates and a 7-game lead over the Cardinals. And the NL West, the San Francisco Giants hold a 6.5-game lead over the Dodgers. Of course, at least with the wild card now, there's usually still playoff drama. So even if, the other divisional races don't tighten up, we still have that to look forward to. Teams battling for that wild card spot. Number 3 is the trade deadline. Trade deadline usually July 31st every year. This year it's August 1st. Since July 31st lands on a Sunday. We've seen some recent World Series teams make moves at the deadline, which have helped them. Last season we saw the Royals acquire both Ben Zobrist and Johnny Cueto. Cueto struggled during the regular season, but had that lights-out performance against the Mets in the World Series. A couple other examples. 2012, the Giants traded for Hunter Pence. 2011, the Cardinals traded for Rafael Furcal, Octavio Dotel, and Edwin Jackson, who all played vital